Welcome to All About Lamb and things that go with lamb. Today on the menu is lamb stew. Some might call it Irish stew. Since I'm not Irish, we're just going to call it lamb stew. But you can call it Irish stew if you want to. To begin with, I'm going to prep some vegetables. We got an onion, 4 cloves of garlic, 4 nice little potatoes, about 1.5 cups of carrots, and then there'll be about 1.5 cups of celery that I'm going to dice. And I already prepped some lamb. I deboned some rib meat that I had, some ribs. Usually I like a leaner cut of lamb, but this is what I had in the freezer and I wanted to use it up. So we're going to turn some rib meat into lamb stew. As you can see, my veggies are prepped. I got my potatoes, onions, celery, carrots, garlic, and the meat. Now to this meat, I added a couple of tablespoons of flour. And we're going to coat that meat with the flour. Our oil is warming up in the Dutch oven, and get the meat in there. A little bit of that flour in there. Mix it all around. And we'll let that brown. Just use a little bit of oil because I figure the fat in that meat will render out also and provide the extra oil. When I'm using a lean cut of lamb, I'll add a couple of strips of bacon chopped up and throw it in there, then pull that bacon out, use the bacon grease to brown my lamb, and then add that bacon back in afterwards. Next we'll add some of our onions. We'll get our garlic in there. Add a teaspoon of salt. Throw in a teaspoon of thyme. We got about a 1/2 teaspoon of coarsely ground black pepper. Now after I deboned that lamb meat, I then took those rib bones and put them in a pot and stewed them for a little while. So adding a couple of cups of that lamb stock that I just made. And we're going to add, how about how about 3 nice bay leaves. Now I think this is what makes it Irish stew versus just lamb stew, is you add a little bit of Irish beer. I prefer a Irish red. A good friend of mine, he likes to add a Guinness stout. And some people add a little red wine, a cup of red wine. We're going to go with the beer. I'm going to add my celery. I could have added that while it was browning, and that would have been nice, but I didn't. We're going to add it now. Now I'm going to let this cook for a little bit, and then I will add my carrots and my potatoes. But I'd rather wait a little bit because I don't want them to get too soft and mushy, since this really should simmer for about a good 1/2 hour, 45 minutes. And then throw the potatoes and carrots in there and let it cook for another 15 or 20 minutes until those are tender. There's another ingredient I almost forgot to add. Some people add a couple of tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Some people add a little bit of tomato paste to thicken it up. I like a couple of tablespoons of Country Bob's steak sauce. Well, I've been out to the barn, took care of the sheep. Now it's time to see what this stew is looking like. That is looking pretty good. Smells good too. Okay, we will add the potatoes. And the carrots. Give that a good mix. We'll put the lid back on. We're going to let those carrots and potatoes cook, and then this will be ready to eat. This is cooked for about an hour and 20 minutes. We had the potatoes in for the last 20 minutes. See what we think. I think it's time for supper. My final step when I make a stew like this is to find those bay leaves. Had 3 bay leaves to start with. I want to pull those 3 bay leaves out because they are a choking hazard. Hope you'll try this recipe. It's quite delicious. Well, I will move this over to the table and we're going to eat supper. You all have a good evening.